There it is. There it is. Okay, it's going to pass. It's going to pass, folks. So, where do we go from here? Last night played out exactly as we said it would, because every party knew they were staring at two terrible choices. One, force an election and get punished for it by the voters, or let a bad budget pass and live to fight another day. Last night, they picked strategy over spectacle. Let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final tally of the voting from last night's confidence vote on Mark Carney's budget, and you can see that 169 Liberals voted for it. The Green Party voted for it, which tallied the 170, and you had 5 of the NDP vote for it, 22 Bloc Québécois, and 141 Conservative. Looking at the NDP a bit closer, these are the 5 NDP that voted against it, and you can see by process of elimination, 2 NDP MPs, Gord Johns and Laurie Idlout, both of them voted against this. Okay, now let's get to the Conservatives. So the Conservatives, we're not going to show you the whole list, but this is just the first bunch of names. 141 of the Conservatives voted against it, and there was 2 abstentions. Who were they? Most people actually know who they are. One of them is Matt Genereux, who was rumored to be crossing the floor, but ended up resigning a couple weeks ago. And the second was Shannon Stubbs. Now, there's been a lot of vitriol going around social media on this, and there's a reasonable explanation as to why she didn't vote. Posted by Damien Carrick last night. Anyone questioning Shannon Stubbs MP's ethic doesn't know her. She's a fighter who takes no prisoners. She missed the vote tonight due to a major surgery delayed once already by the spring election to fix complications she's battled her whole life. I spoke to her before her surgery and know she wanted nothing more than to keep working. She would have loved nothing more than to vote down this disaster Liberal budget, and I know she 100% stands with Pierre Poilievre. From both Danielle Carrick and I, rest up Shannon. So where did this come from? Well, this came from the fact that there were multiple social media influencers last night calling Shannon a traitor, calling her a horse-faced traitor, calling her names and everything under the sun, when they didn't even know what was going on. And this is one of the big problems with social media, is that people will rush to make an uninformed statement just to get clicks rather than actually dig in to find out the facts. And as a result of that, a whole bunch of people now don't even believe the facts. So what ended up happening is the original surgery that she had scheduled was actually on April 28th. So she decided to postpone that. And at that point, as most Canadians know, when they're dealing with challenges with our healthcare system, you kind of pick the date that they give you, because otherwise you're going to be waiting even longer. So she had to wait almost 7 months to actually reschedule that surgery, and that ended up happening on yesterday, November 17th. Pretty sure it's going to be kind of hard for her to even know that a budget is going to be presented that day. After the election, everyone would have expected the budget to be presented, in June, when it's supposed to be. But there we are. So even MPs, and this was an interesting postulation we saw on social media recently, some people are trying to say that MPs have their own healthcare system separate from everybody else. No, there's not some shadow state healthcare system. They use the same one as everybody else in Canada. So they have to wait just as long as everybody else in order to actually get this stuff done. So I'm not sure what people were expecting. When you're incapacitated, when you're in hospital, you can't really do anything. And you can't vote because you have to go through this facial recognition process and sign in, and you can't have other people vote for you. That's not allowed. It has to be the MP that actually votes. This isn't like the US. This isn't like other countries where you have other people going over and pressing a button and voting for other people that aren't even there. That's not how it goes. So that's why this happened. And some people will say, well, why didn't they pair the vote? So this gets into an even more complicated issue. But pairing is when essentially you make an informal agreement that someone has to be away from the vote, and they make an informal agreement with the government that they're going to pair it. Now, there's nothing binding to that, but what that means is the person that's going to be away and not be able to vote or abstain on the opposition side, one person from the government will do the same. The problem is nobody could trust that that would happen, because what if the NDP all of a sudden decided to vote completely against the budget? Then it falls because there's one less government vote there. So this is why that couldn't work. So you can either choose to believe that or choose not to believe that, but it makes a lot more sense that that would be the case. Now, a lot of other people are saying, well, she posted a video earlier that day condemning the budget. Many MPs post or record things in advance, and then their staff post it in almost all cases, like almost all cases. The MP is not the one that actually runs the social media accounts of their namesake. So Pierre isn't the one posting all the stuff that you see from Pierre. It's a lot of things that he wants posted, but his staff do it because he's too busy to do that. So this most likely was recorded in advance, probably days in advance. I would say probably on the weekend or even last week during constituency week, and then it was posted today. So just because something was posted today doesn't mean that she's up and around and doing things. And it wouldn't have mattered, folks. Wouldn't have mattered, because if Shannon Stubbs and Matt Genereux had voted against the budget, then it would have been a tie, 170 to 170. And what happens in a tie? As we all know, the speaker then stands up and he's the tiebreaker. And he would have voted for the budget, and the budget would have passed. So that's where that comes into play. Now, this is what we said would happen over 3 weeks ago. Most likely, you have a bunch of people show up, vote against the budget, but you have just enough people that have the flu and they're unable to vote, that there's not enough votes to actually vote down the budget. And that way, you have all three opposition parties saying, you know what? We all voted against it. This is a terrible budget, but not enough people showed up to vote. So it actually still passes. That's most likely. That's the biggest scenario I can see. If the NDP decide to vote against this budget, that's what I see will happen. And that ends up to being exactly what happened. So that was interesting to see that play out exactly as we thought it would. It's, again, we're not happy that this budget passed, but I would rather see this budget pass and having the Liberals wear the failures of this budget and have Canadians go through another winter. The swing voters realize, hey, this Christmas is worse than last Christmas. Justin Trudeau was the prime minister in the last Christmas. Mark Carney's the prime minister this time, and it's worse. Maybe I made a mistake when I voted for Mark Carney in the last election. Maybe the TV lied to me when they said that he was a fiscal genius and would handle all of our problems with Donald Trump. Maybe Mark Carney is a liar. So, unfortunately, this is what the swing voters need. They need one more winter of problems and pain, and realizing that I keep hearing there's a $78 billion deficit, and we're spending twice as much as Justin Trudeau, yet my groceries aren't getting lower in price. I'm not able to afford rent, and unemployment is still going up. And there's all other kinds of problems that are not getting fixed as a result of a new government. So this is why we think this is what needs to happen. And then in the spring, we will see another confidence vote, and we will see most likely a spring election, because the NDP will have their leader, the NDP will have their platform. And remember, if the Conservatives do nothing but hold what they have, and the NDP manage to win back support, that's a majority government for the Conservatives. So if you weren't with us last night, here's a couple of the highlights as the vote was being taken. And This is right near the end of where the Liberals were voting, and I was waiting to see if the NDP were going to stand up and support it.
Madame Mingarelli.
Madame Mingarelli.
Ms. Nathan.
Ms. Nathan.
Ms. Wien.
Ms. Wien.
Mr. Tumba.
Monsieur Tumba.
Ms. O'Rourke.
Ms. O'Rourke.
Mr. Rana.
Mr. Rana.
Ms. Royer.
Mr. Royer.
Mr. Saini.
Mr. Saini.
Mr. Sari.
Monsieur Sari.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Ms. Sodi.
Ms. Sodi.
Mr. Saint-Pierre.
Mr. Saint-Pierre.
Ms. Tesser-Dirksen.
Tesser Dirksen.
Mr. Villeneuve.
Mr. Villeneuve.
Mr. Watchorn.
Monsieur Watchhorn.
Ms. May.
Ms. May.
Now here's the question. Okay. NDP did not vote for it.
All those opposed to the motion. All those opposed
NDP
to the
did
motion
not
will
vote
please
for
rise.
it.
Mr. Polyev.
Mr. Collier.
Mr. Doherty.
Doherty.
Mr. Schmale.
Schmale.
Mr. Brock.
Mr. Brock.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Bazan.
Mrs. Block.
Mrs. Block.
Mrs. Thomas.
Hall.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Strauss.
Mr. Strauss.
Mr.
Let's see.
Blanchet.
Monsieur Blanchet.
Okay,
Mr.
block votes
Garon.
against.
Monsieur Garon.
Madame Normandin.
Normandin.
Mr. Brunel-Duceppe.
Everyone assuming the block would be bought off. Incorrect.
Monsieur Simard.
Mr. Fortin.
Monsieur Fortin.
Mr. Beaulieu.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Mr. Blanchet-Jonca.
Monsieur Blanchet.
Just texting with one of the MPs. They say it's going to be close.
Mr. Davies, Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Davies. Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Bouleris.
Mr. Bouleris.
Ms.
NDP
McPherson.
Ms. McPherson.
Ms.
partially voting
Kwan.
against.
Ms. Kwan.
Oh. This is crazy, folks. Did anybody abstain? That's the question. That's the question. I imagine we're going to get an abstention.
The electronic voting period has ended, and the House will now await the end of the broadcasting of the votes for members voting electronically before resuming its proceedings. Once the proceedings resume, I will invite members who encountered technical difficulties to identify themselves.
Abstention. There it is. There it is. Okay, it's going to pass. It's going to pass, folks. And sure enough, that's what happened. So, where do we go from here? Well, now begins a very rigorous campaign, if they're smart, of the Conservatives, of the Bloc, and of the NDP to scream off of every hilltop they can find about all of the problems with this budget and remind Canadians repeatedly, and more so as more time goes on, that their lives are not getting any better as a result of this Liberal government and as a result of Mark Carney. So the first milestone that we were counting down to was the presentation of this budget. So it passed as we thought it would, as we thought it needed to. And now the next milestone is going to be what happens after that NDP leadership race is done, and the next confidence vote after that. That one we expect to be far more dramatic, depending on where the polls move, and if the opposition parties do their job and show everybody that there's all these other organizations out there that agree with them, that they're not crazy, they're not just standing up just because this is their political interest in criticizing the budget. They're criticizing it because it's bad for Canadians. So stay tuned, folks, because this is going to be one wild end of the fall session, as all the opposition parties are loaded for bear against the Liberals, and it's not going to stop until we go to what we think is going to be a spring and summer election.